are ready to go. Hello.
Hi,
Hello. Hi, Maya. Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen from around the world, and welcome to the Children's Literature channel of the New Books Network. And I'm here with the spectacular author-illustrator from Israel, and her name is Maya Shleifer. Hi, Maya. Great to
hi,
have you
May.
on the program.
Hi, nice to meet you.
It's
Thank you for having
it,
me.
it's a real honor, and in Israel, you're very famous. And in the past couple of years, you're reaching out around the world, and soon everybody will hear of you. You have several books coming out in the UK, in the States. Um, let's talk about your biggest hit so far. Your biggest hit so far is going to be your gigantic book, right?
Um, I don't know, every book that I'm working on feels like this.
Okay, but this one has been translated into many languages.
Uh, the one that I worked on, that called Giant Home, was published 2 years ago in Israel. It was translated to many languages. It was popular in France, was listed, nominated uh, in the list of best children's books in Spain, and etc. It was also nominated in Bratislava and received the second prize. This is it.
Okay, a giant book about a giant. So
Yeah.
tell us about the book and show us some of your beautiful artwork because you are the author and the illustrator.
It tells the story of the giant that was too big for his house, and he lost his whole house in a very sad accident. He considered this accident as sad and tragic, but then when he gets to his way looking for a new home, he discovered the world that he did not knew about. He finds friends. At the end, everything turns to be much better than it was in the beginning. For me, it was a story of my immigration.
Okay, so gorgeous. But that's the end papers?
And papers, yeah, but they are like
Ah,
textured black
okay.
papers.
Okay. So tell us about your immigration and your life and how you started to be a wonderful illustrator and then started writing your own books. We're very interested in all of this.
I immigrated when I was 16 years old in the program for children that immigrates without parents, and I lived few years in the desert, in the Negev desert.
Well,
This,
hold on. Without parents,
yeah, in the program. Yes,
where are your parents?
my parents immigrated half a year later, but I stayed in the same program because I loved it so much. It was much better to be in the desert, in the place that many interesting, strange people arrived to stay there. So I preferred to stay there. And then I went to the army, to Academy of Arts. I completed my study in typography design. And for many years, I was an art director in newspapers, magazines. When I started, I didn't think at all about illustration, and then suddenly, when my daughter was born, I had a very strong urge to write and to draw for her, and I couldn't stop. I just did it uh, parallel to my full-time job for several years until I received the first offer. Then I started to illustrate very slowly, one book in a year or two. And only 2 years ago, I decided that that's enough. I can't do anything else except an illustration.
So this has become a not only a passion, but this is now what you do full time.
Yeah.
And when you got to Israel, you were a teenager. Had you been drawing your whole life? Where did you grow up exactly?
I grew in a very sad, gray place in Russia where my parents were forced to live. They cannot, yes.
Why
It's
were they forced to live? Where was this?
why
In what Gryazny Gorod in Russia?
Arzamas. If Sakharov was sent to Gorky, so my father was famous, but was not famous enough. So he was sent to Arzamas. This is the only place in Russia where he was allowed to work. Let's say
Wow.
like this. So I was born in Moldova because the family of my mother lived there. And then when my father was sent to Arzamas, so when I was 1 year old, I arrived to Arzamas, the place that we could not connect to, and I did not have friends there. I also had some issues with health and spent a lot of time in hospitals alone. So pencils were my best friends, and there were no sharpeners, so I had to use them when my parents. Yeah, there were no sharpeners in USSR. No, there were no things like that. Everything we missed everything. Just, uh,
So
so
how did you sharpen your karandash?
now I have that's all. There, I think when I went to the art school, it was an art school after the regular school. There were we taught to use the knife, but I don't remember how my parents sharpened my pencils. But I remember that every time they arrived, the first thing that I did, I asked them to shape my pencils, and I drew. My drawing was the worst. I think I was left-handed, and I was taught to draw with the right hand. So my drawing was the most terrible drawing in the kindergarten. I was always taught, explained that I need to draw this way and not that way, and I always wanted to draw my way, but I did it all the time. And still, I didn't imagine myself to become an illustrator. It's funny.
Wow. So this started in kindergarten, where they forced you to write with your right hand and to draw with your right hand. Uh, this happened to me also in Canada. People can be very prejudiced, and I had the same thing, except I fought them. But I'm not sure that in Russia you can fight back. So did you go back to drawing with your left hand and writing with your left hand?
No, maybe I could use both hands. I'm not sure because I remember that people were just saying me, okay, move the pencil to the right hand. And I was doing this without putting attention what's better for me and what's worse. So today I feel comfortable with my right hand.
Okay, that's great. And so do you have the DNA of illustration in your family? Do you have family members who are painters and illustrators, or this was like your medicine and you grew up with it?
Not exactly, but I have a complicated history of my family. I had a great grandfather who was enormously talented. We know that he wrote poems. He became, but this was not his business. He became the head of NKVD in Russia. And yes, he did a lot of things. He was a genius, I think. Then his daughter, and he did his daughter, his wife, my great grandfather separated from him, but my grandmother, his daughter, was also talented in the way that nobody can imagine. She just could draw, create anything with lightness, easiness that I didn't saw in anybody around me. She was a teacher of Russian literature. She knew a lot of poems. She remembered all these poems, stories, but she, also she drew only for us. She was decorating the house before Christmas or things like that, and she did it so beautifully. but nobody did it professionally. I think it was not accepted in Jewish families at all. Even I
Wow.
remember my father. I tried to draw my father, and he told me that it's forbidden to draw him. Today
Wow.
he doesn't remember it, but I remember it very well how it was said when I was around 7.
So do you think that you inherited the drawing gene?
Uh, I see the continuous line from my grandmother and her father. We understand that all our talents come from there in the
That's
family.
wonder that's wonderful. So how did you develop in Israel? How did you develop your art and your storytelling in Israel?
When my daughter was born and I started to read her books, I
Up,
had
up until up until then, you never thought
I
about
s-
illustrating
no
books for
illustration not at
children.
all. No, no, not at all. I drew. I love to
Yeah.
draw, but it was like, okay, I want to go to the forest and to draw forest with oil colors or acrylic colors, something like that. Not illustration at all. It was also, I did not like children's books even, I think. I had this feeling that it's not interesting enough. It's not interesting enough to illustrate these things until my daughter was born, and suddenly it turned all my life upside down.
Maya, were there any particular books that you read to her in Hebrew, in Russian, in English that kindled this spark?
Yes. First of all, I read to her uh, Chukovsky. This is a very famous children's book author, Russian Jewish, half Russian, that I read to her, and it was terrible illustrated in the book that I bought to her. I had old books that were illustrated good, that his old books, but the new that I found in Israel were not illustrated good. And then I saw a book of David Polonsky, and yes, suddenly I recognized that the illustration can be different. It was the first very strong push.
Wow. Wow. And which book was that? Do you remember?
Uh, and this is one. Uh, the Fabric for
Wow.
Thieves.
With Kobe Maidan wrote it. So you began illustrating books. And did you know what you were doing? Did you take courses? Did you join SCBWI? Did you have a critique club? What happened?
I and nothing anything about illustration at the moment. I did not hear about SCBWI. I did not hear about Bologna Children's Book Fair. And it took me time because I didn't study it in Bezalel. I wasn't in the circle of illustrations. I missed everything and I had to discover it. And it took me 4 or 5 years to discover what exists in the market, in the world. I attended several groups in Live Journal. There was no Facebook then. It was Live Journal. And there were several forums about children illustration. And suddenly I started to discover very interesting uh, contemporary illustrators. But
Okay.
I could not allow any courses because I worked full-time job and I had a small daughter that I spent a lot of time with her. So I worked at nights, in the weekends. Then I asked to move to part-time job, but it was a very slow process. And I draw only at home.
So after 4 or 5 years of sharpening your illustration pencil, what happened?
Yeah, of obsessive sharpening.
What happened?
What happened? Uh, at first, when I started to illustrate, I was afraid that everybody will recognize that I don't know how to draw. So I drew in a very realistic style. Then I started to remind myself that I love to draw, that this is the reason that I started to draw. So I tried to do different things and bought colors. Also, my daughter was already 4 or 5 years old, and I could afford myself not. I was not afraid so much that she will erase everything. It was a breaking point, and this was a
Okay.
moment when I started to hear about Bologna Fear, and then I came in 2012 for the first time to Bologna Fear, and I think since then the level of my works jumped, springed,
Wow. So
and
you're the second person. Well, hold on a second, Maya. Um, People say about the Bologna Fair that it's a waste of time if you don't have appointments and if you don't have an agent and if you don't have a publisher. You just wander around the halls. And I've been to Bologna, but you're the second person today that told me that Bologna made your career.
it did not
So
make
what,
my
what?
career, but it
Ah,
inspired
okay.
me and it showed me where I should strive. Uh, because I don't think that it's right about agents and so on, or meetings, appointments. Today, there are almost no editors that are interested to speak with illustrators in Bologna Fair. They are meeting mostly to buy rights, foreign rights. That's all, and I don't. It's not the right place. The SCBWI conference is much better place for illustrators than
Ah, okay, okay. I agree with you. So did you go to an SCBWI meeting?
I went last year, and this is a place where I found my agent, the agent that I could not dream that she will work with me. And it was
Okay,
after
from
many years,
Catbird.
yeah, it was after many years that
And
I tried to contact agents and they didn't answer my emails. Then I understood that I need to meet personally.
okay, a personal meeting is always better if you
Yeah,
can arrange it. But when you went to SCBWI last year, um, maybe we crossed each other in the corridors. I was there 2 years ago, perhaps. Um, in New York, you went?
yeah.
Oh, we might have met each other. The thing is that you were already a traditionally published illustrator. How did you break in? You know, you published in Israel with Zmora, which is a leading Israeli publisher. How did you get your first traditional book deal in Israel?
In Israel.
And and what book was that? That was your first deal, right?
Yeah, in Israel, my first book was, I did not brought it here, was with my publisher, with Meira Ferron. I don't know
With
how,
Talmai.
yeah,
With Talmai.
yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Um, I know somebody very well who's publishing there.
yes, they
Me.
publish many, many, congratulations. They publish
Thank you,
many
dear.
books.
So
They,
your first publishing was Talmai, and I didn't even know that.
yeah,
What book was it? What year?
it was a book of Meira. I think Aviya's Secret, it was called.
Yeah,
She also,
I
it
know
was
that book.
okay. It was also
That
first book of me, also I think first book of Meira.
wow. So I have a book in the same series. It's incredible. Wow, it's a wonderful book. I think maybe I translated it to English. That's crazy. Well, I certainly recognize that book. Sorry for not remembering. That was your first book.
Yeah.
Incredible. And how did you find Meira and Yotam?
Yotam was not there yet.
Ah, okay.
She, uh, Meira found me, I think on internet. I am not sure how.
It's a small world in Israel, isn't it?
Yes, I think in
And
every place. Also in
that's
the,
incredible. I'm gonna touch myself for not knowing that. Shame on me. Um, and that's hilarious. And after that,
after that, uh, authors and publishers started to find me and to send me from each other. It was a line. And then I don't know how exactly Chronicle Books found me. Maybe because I
what?
sent my. Yes, they found me. They just contacted me by surprise. Uh, surprise happened. Maybe because I took part in many competitions and my books won, so maybe they saw me and maybe they looked for an Jewish illustrator because the theme of the book, Too Many Golems, traditional Jewish fairy tale, but modern
So,
fairy
so
tale.
this book I know, Maya, and I interviewed the authors recently. Heidi was my mentor recently. I know her well, and I met and interviewed Jane as well. And when I saw this gorgeous book, I said, okay, I have to interview Maya also and find out how she got this wonderful opportunity. And I must say, you took this opportunity and created a gorgeous book, a gorgeous book. Show us some of the spreads.
Yeah,
Can you show us some of the book? Your favorite,
my
your favorite
favorite,
spread.
okay, I will show you. I have one very favorite spread. I think always my favorite spread is one that it's not obvious and was not supposed to appear in the book. This one was supposed to appear, but
Gorgeous. I must say that for those of you who cannot look at the gorgeous book, Too Many Golems, by Jane Yolen and Heidi Snell, and illustrated by Maya Shleifer, who I'm talking to now, you just have to run out and buy this book. It's gorgeous. And you said Chronicle, right?
yeah. The funny fact
Gor
that when editor contacted me, I was busy. I worked full time at startup and simultaneously I worked on the book of David Grossman that
Mhm.
also is published in USA but with different illustrations. And I told that I can't take this book of Jane Yolen. I'm sorry. They had harsh deadlines and I could not do it. And after
Oh
several
yeah, did you know who Jane Yolen and Heidi Stemple
No,
were?
no, and I
Ah,
love the story. I wrote that I love the story a lot. And I want to illustrate it, but I just can't take it now. I will available only in the next year. And I think I thought that okay, they will go and that's all. But no, after several weeks, the editor sent me an email that they want to wait until I will be available for this book. It was a miracle for me.
it's incredible. And
Yeah.
at some stage, you realized who that you were being golem to which authors. At
And
some
you
stage, you realized that you were illustrating for, the best of the best.
Yes, it was at the end, I think, that I started to check who is Jane Yolen and recognized how many great books she wrote. And I also read several books that she wrote. Yeah.
So that's incredible. That's incredible. And you are working now on several books as well. And we should talk also, before we talk about the books that haven't come out yet, on your transition from being a illustrator to becoming an author illustrator, which usually takes a lot of guts and courage for an illustrator to say, okay, I want to write my own stories. Tell
Mm.
us about that, please. I'm intrigued.
Maybe I did not say this for me that I want to be an author. It just happened to me, exactly like Too Many Golems. I went to the workshop in illustration workshop where illustrators supposed to write and draw their story. But from the start, I told that I'm not going to write the story. I did not want to write the story. So, but somehow it just jumped out. The story of the giant jumped out. In 5 or 10 minutes, I wrote the story. It's funny.
And it's funny that it's a story about a giant jumps out. It's not a story about a fly, right? A giant jumps out of your mind and sneezes.
Yeah, we were, there was a list of the words, the subjects that we were supposed to select three of them and write a story. And I immediately thought spider giant house and immediately imagined the story of the giant and drew it. I think I'm the only one that did it after this workshop, published the book. And I showed this book to Yael Gover, the editor of Kineret Zmora publishing house, and she was delighted. She loved the illustration a lot, but the story was not complete. It was like the plot, the line of the story, but somehow I missed the point between the ending, and it took me 1 or 2 years to recognize how it should work exactly. And the second book happened exactly the same
No,
way.
hold on, Maya. We're still in the first book.
Sorry.
So is there a stage where Yael says to you, see if you can improve the book, and you're stuck in some place where you're worried, oy vey, can I really improve it?
No, maybe because Yale never told me this thing. It's I love to work with her a lot because she is a person. She, I will try to say exactly the sentence that she told me because it was so important. She read the story. She told me that she loved it, and we both took it aside. And I think that later, maybe 1 month, 2 months, she told me the changing seasons is so beautiful. In this story, the change of seasons plays a big role, but it didn't exist in the beginning at all. It was always summer, and only I wanted the giant to fall asleep. And suddenly, when Yael told this, I think there were yellow leaves, and I wrote that it was cold, but I didn't draw it. So when she told it, suddenly I understood that he fall asleep in winter. It's very cold. It's almost like death for him and rebirth. Everything grew from this sentence of Yael. But no,
So
I don't feel like I stuck. It's like I put aside because I worked so long on illustration books that I know that sometimes when you don't see the solution, it needs to take time to give it time, and it will be much better that I can imagine by forcing myself to imagine.
so you're not like some people I know, like me, who frets and worries that, but people don't realize that picture books are like a puzzle. And sometimes you have all the pieces except one, and it can drive me crazy. And you say that it doesn't drive you crazy, you just put it aside for a while.
Yeah. Or I can try to do something. I say, okay, it does not work, so uh, should wait, and then it will grow. I put
That's
attention that the process is always happening in my mind, even when I don't try to write. Even better, if I don't try to write, the process is happening. So which I will just see the solution in the right time, but it will be there.
so here's what's incredible, and that is that you had all these years this author, Maya Shleifer, sitting somewhere inside you, and it just popped out like the giant. It popped out with the giant. And then how did you feel? Did you say to yourself, oh my goodness, I could have been writing for 20 years. I could have been illustrating my own wonderful stories. Did you have any angst looking back? What happened? Was it some revelation for you?
No, I'm not the type of person. It's just a process of growing. I think that I did so many interesting things. I worked in startups. I created interactive exhibition. I'm doing so many different things that it's just natural that okay, the things will happen.
That's incredible. So tell us now, you have another book that we want to mention that came out last year, which I also love with the lion. A few words about the lion and Anna.
Yeah, this one. It also happened like the first one in the workshop. In time that I was in the workshop, and it was my second workshop, and I told to myself, I don't want to force myself to write, and I'm not going to write anything. I also had in mind
Who gives these workshops, Maya? We have to give credit to the
Jesus,
person.
Jesus Cisneros, but I can tell you that I'm the only person that published book actually in his workshop. Um,
So what happened here? You had a prompt of a lion and what?
And Anna. This book is inspired by my difficult childhood, by hardships that I had in my childhood, not having friends, not to be accepted by other children because I was the only Jewish child in the kindergarten. I was also different. I was also Jewish. I was different from all the possible aspects. And later, my daughter also had some troubles in Israel, but from different point of view. So I think she was an inspiration because I thought about her, how she is going, how she went. I wrote this book when she was already 20 years old. It took her. But she was very happy. She cried when she read
Wow.
this book. Yes.
Wow.
So the girl can't find herself in the kindergarten. She don't want to go there. She doesn't want to go there. And then suddenly she meets the lion that tells her that she is a lion too. And she, of course, tells him that she is not a lion at all. And he just meets the girl after the kindergarten or before the kindergarten and speaks with her. Also, he follows her at her home and just suggest her to try to try to feel like a lion, to roar like a lion. And what didn't work with the lion worked very well with her mom. When her mom tried to speak with her, suddenly the girl turned to be a lion. Uh, so she's looking for a way to, she's looking for herself. She's trying to understand who is he and how is to be her. And at the end, when she doesn't try to be somebody else, doesn't try to find friends that don't want to be her friends, she imagined her new way to be. And this way looks very attractive. Other children find it very attractive. And suddenly everybody wants to be her friend and to play with her. Uh, this is a story.
Beautiful. And the whole kindergarten became a jungle, and the
Yeah,
kindergarten teacher didn't mind at all. I hope you have as much success with this one abroad as you had with your giant book, maybe even more. But we both know that penetrating the global scene is so difficult these days.
it's
Um,
yeah.
Maya, what books are you working on? You have a book coming out with Walker. Tell us about it.
Walker books. It was just also a beautiful story because I wanted Walker Books to work with me very much, and I sent them my last book, and they didn't answer to me, and I was very sad. Why? Why? So I decided to send them the postcards with Anna and Ryan. And later, the art director of Walker Books contacted me, and she told me that this day she received a text that needed so colorful illustration, and she thought, who can illustrate this thing like this? And suddenly she received my postcards the same day. And yeah, it was
Wow.
the same day, and this book is very colorful, and she decided to contact me. It was a book about anxiety. It's a very beautiful book because uh, the way to to manage it, the author, that also an illustrator, but this time they preferred a different illustrator, imagined a rainbow. The child every time need to think about one color. And it allowed so much freedom and so many colors. So I enjoyed a lot to work on it.
And this book
Also,
is called the Rainbow Breath.
yeah, the Rainbow
And who
Breath,
is the author?
Helen Cooper, Helen Cooper, and it will be published in May 2025.
Well, tell Helen that I would love to interview her when it comes out.
Okay. I will write to her.
That's incredible. And you have more stuff coming out. Is it a secret? Can you share?
I prefer not to speak a lot. I'm working on several books. One is mine, and I'm working with American editor. And one is not mine, but also the author. I'm sorry, I will not tell the name of
I
the book.
I can
So
tell the audience that at least one of these books is a major U.S. publisher. But we
both of
won't.
them.
Both of them. Okay, there you go. You see. Now maybe you want to say who the publishers are.
One is Little Brown, and another Hippo Press. I think Hippo Press them in Astra Publishing House, part of also very
Wonderful.
publisher.
So that's amazing. And I wanted to ask you now a few more questions. Um, well, now that you've become Maya, the storyteller, has popped out suddenly with the giant, and you have this long-standing tradition of outstanding illustration. Do you want to now just write and illustrate your own books, or are you going to continue to illustrate other people's books?
I I was asked by the agent this question, and I think at this moment I enjoy to do one my book and one book by written by somebody else, because my own books much harder to work on. They're just completely incomplete. When I'm working, I'm illustrating, then I changing the text, then I change the illustration. I go back and forth, and the process is much more harder than when I work with somebody else's text that it's ready. That's it. I need just to illustrate.
I must say that I've interviewed almost 200 people, and your answers are the most unanticipated and they're original. I was not able to guess any of your answers today except the ones that I already knew the answers to. So finally, you have had great success in a very unorthodox a fashion. And it's a good time now to give some advice for up and coming storytellers, authors, illustrators who have not published traditionally yet, who don't have an agent yet. What is your best palette of advice, Maya Shleifer?
Um, there are two directions: self development and finding yourself in the market. I think both of them are correlating and are very important, because when you are ready, somehow the market will find you. But to believe to yourself and to know when to release, when to listen to yourself, and when not to force yourself, to preserve the freshness of thinking and feeling. I think this is a side of creative. This is a creative part of our work, and we need to keep it to be very conscious about this part. And from another side, we have to be market persons and to understand that we need to push us, but like not not to be pushed in art, in creative process, but be very pushy, pushing person in the market. That's important.
To market ourselves.
Yeah. And for me, it was very, I think when you stay in one country and look there for an agent, for a publisher, it's easier because you're connected to, it's very important to be connected to the place. When I listen that somebody lives in Israel and want to be published or illustrate for outside, first of all, I think he have to be connected to different place too. So what I did, I first of all I researched all the Koch Venus books that I could find, and many I bought by myself, many I found online, but I had to understand the American literature before I want to be published there. Then I went there physically and I had a very strong connection to what I saw, to the people in the underground everywhere. And even the book that I'm working on right now, it's a book about New York somehow, about the people of New York. If I wouldn't come to New York and wouldn't connect to the place, it will not happen. It would not happen.
Incredible. So Maya Shleifer with great answers, some of them completely surprising and unexpected. It's been a great, great privilege and honor interviewing you here. And ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye on this super talented individual. I think you're going to conquer the world. So Maya Shleifer, I am Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And I've been here with incredible Maya Shleifer, who celebrated two recent books that she wrote and illustrated, um, and recently the Too Many Golems book with Chronicle, and much more coming out. And it was great, great having you on the show.
Thank you very much, Mel. See
Bye,
you.
and we'll talk in Israel.
Okay, fine, great. Bye bye.
Bye bye.